Good morning. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. First, we want to thank you very much. We're trying to start exactly on time. We want to thank those in attendance, and I want to give you an idea of how we will move this. We have a live link to Libya and South Africa. Cynthia McKinney, as you know, is in Libya. She had intended to be here with us today, but she couldn't get out after the university, the Nasser University, was bombed in Tripoli. And so she's going to give us a brief report by phone. We couldn't get her image, and we're going to start off with, I'm going to call him the Honorable Ramsey Clark, former Attorney General. He's been involved in human rights issues all over the world. And wherever injustice has taken place, you can find Ramsey Clark lifting his voice up. So we're honored to have him to lift up his voice in his own way of what's happening in North Africa, Libya in particular. So I'd like to bring Ramsey Clark to the mic.
Good morning. The crime of the moment is a murderous assault by the United States, the United Nations, and NATO on the people of Libya. It's the last in a long line of assaults on Arab and Muslim peoples. For 20 years now, the cradle of civilization, Iraq, has been systematically attacked and destroyed under the leadership of my country, the United States. We see the long struggle in Afghanistan. We see drones invading the sovereignty of Pakistan and threatening to invade the sovereignty of Yemen. There's no end to it. The United States has supported dictators over the Arab people for years and years. We supported Mubarak to the very end, in spite of the patent, massive revolution of the people, finally, after suffering under Sadat and Mubarak because of the United States backing there, and it has to end. We tried to assassinate the leader of the Libyan people in 1986. It was a sneak attack. Planes from Lakenheath Air Force Base in England, flying all the way around the Iberian Peninsula and coming through the Straits of Gibraltar, coming right off the sea. And what did they hit first? They hit the compound that we're seeing every day on television. They hit his office. They hit his tent out in the compound there. They hit his home. They killed a daughter. This time they've killed 3 grandchildren. Is there no end to it? Is there no decency? Are the people of the planet powerless to end such tyranny and violence? It's absolutely essential that we stand up, that this institution across the street that was created to end the scourge of war stop initiating and supporting the scourge of war for superpowers like the United States. Assassinations are something we know about too. There were 3 in my time in the Department of Justice. Everyone heartbreaking, of a great moral leader. And it has to stop. It needs to stop right now. We need to call a cessation to the arms fight and a peace settlement of any dispute that exists there. But the support of the people for Colonel Gaddafi seems pretty obvious. They've been able to withstand this enormous assault from outside by the greatest powers on earth that manufacture too many arms. And the United States must cut its military spending by 90% before there can be peace on earth, because that is the problem, all those arms coming out of this country. Thank you.
We want to thank Ramsey Clark. Next, I'd like to introduce the chairperson of the December the 12th movement. She has been involved in human rights struggles, not only inside of America, with all of our prisoners that we have left on the wayside who struggled for us for justice during the days of the Black liberation struggle, but she's been involved internationally across the world, attending conferences and fighting for human rights causes. She's well known in New York and throughout America as a real fighter, Sister Viola Plummer.
Good afternoon. And again, we come to draw attention to the imperialist aggression in our homeland, Africa. It is very clear to us that what's afoot, if we go back to Brzezinski's chessboard, that Africa at this point is the focal point for the empire's recolonization. There are two extremely important countries on the continent of Africa at this point. One such is the sovereign country of Libya, and that it is very clear that the bombing, the aggression, the attempt at the murderous assassination of a leader sits well with the government of the United States. We are calling on African people throughout the United States, and I say African people in particular, because it is Africa. It is Africa which is at this time in the crosshairs. The attempted assassination of President Muammar Gaddafi and the illegal sanctions on the Republic of Zimbabwe. These two countries are the stalwart countries who resist the militarization of the continent vis-a-vis Africa. So that we're calling on people throughout the United States to join us August 13th, here in Harlem, where we're calling millions of our people to understand our relationship between here and Africa, between the United States and Africa, that we are under attack, and that we must mobilize the millions of our people, because we are clear from the teachings of Dr. John Henry Clark that it must be Pan-Africanism or we perish. Thank you.
Thank you. Viola said August the 17th because that's Marcus Garvey's birthday, and it's kind of etched in her brain. But next is Sister Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman from Georgia, an international activist throughout the world. She lost her seat because of her activities in championing the cause internationally of people who are oppressed and even her own government. So she's in Tripoli now. She's on the phone. She's going to make a brief statement, and we're going to ask her to stay on the line until the end of the press conference. Cynthia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Akbar. I would just like to say that the international media are here. U.S. media are here, but the truth is nowhere to be found. Since I have been in Tripoli and its metropolitan area, I can say that I have been an eyewitness to terror, an eyewitness to NATO terror. I have seen this terror in people's homes, in the mosque, at schools, and even at community parties. No place is safe. The House of Representatives cut off the funding, and yet there was a 24-hour news blackout in the United States. The American people didn't even know what their own Congress had done because the U.S. press refused to broadcast it. It is correct that the first casualty of war is truth. War is a racket, and nowhere is that more evident than right here in Libya. I commend the members of the House of Representatives, the members of Congress, who voted to cut off the funding for this adventure of our government, and those members of Congress who have the intention of taking the Obama administration to court to force the Obama administration to respect the U.S. Constitution and the War Powers Act. Thank you so much, Akbar, for having me here.
Thank you. Sister Cynthia McKinney, could you stay on the line? We're going to try to have you to listen in. Minister Farrakhan will be speaking next. Thank you very much. So stay on the line. I want to give this back to Brian so you can put it by a speaker. Brother Ashad, would you take it? Here you are. Give it to Brian and put it by. First, before I introduce Minister Farrakhan, I'd like to recognize Brian Becker from Answer Coalition. Brian has worked very hard. If Cynthia is blessed to get back to America, as you read the news, you can see they're trying to cut off the road to Tunisia, which is the lifeline to Tripoli, and also to make sure that the tanks that supply fuel for the Tripoli metropolitan area are under attack. So it may be difficult for her to get back, but Brian has organized a tour for Cynthia to speak in about 5 cities across America. So this is Brian Becker. Would you stand? Most of you know that the Answer Coalition is excellent at organizing people, and when the White House does something wrong, you can count on Answer Coalition to be out in front of the White House. I'd like to, first of all, thank Minister Louis Farrakhan. He pulled this together. He's been talking about it. It's been on his mind to make a statement about what is happening in Libya. And those who saw his first press conference, the minister gave us permission. We know that at the UN right now, there's a delegation from the African Union, and many of them who wanted to attend told us that they had to be there for this particular meeting this morning. And the minister has given us permission to deliver the DVD from this press conference to all of the African states as well as the Caribbean and those that are in NATO. So without further ado, let's bring on Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his goodness and his mercy to the human family. That whenever any member of this family strays from his straight path and earns his displeasure, before he punishes, he always raises from among the people a prophet or a messenger to whom he gives what is called divine revelation, by means of which that people can be guided back to his favor. And we thank him for these prophets and messengers of God, Moses and the Torah, Jesus and the Gospel, Muhammad and the Quran. I am a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I could never thank Allah enough for his intervention in our affairs in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who came among us and raised from among us the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, particularly to reform black people in America and to raise black people in America, black people throughout the world, and to warn America and the world of what is happening now and will continue to get worse. I am here this morning, and I am happy to see the press, but it's irrelevant to me if you print one word or no words. I'm here to make a statement. And when I finish, if you wish to ask me questions, you're welcome. I'm here to discuss the current state of affairs in Libya and the actions taken by the United Nations with respect to Security Council Resolution 1973, passed on the 17th of March, 2011. I'm addressing my remarks to the United Nations and all those who have joined to destroy brother leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and the Libyan Jamahiriya. What is the justification for such an action that was taken by the Security Council of the United Nations? If the Security Council passed Resolution 1973 to protect the civilian population of Libya from the so-called evil intentions of the leader of Libya, why then is NATO, under the auspices of the Security Council, forgetting about humanitarian concerns and now using Resolution 1973 as a pretext to assassinate Muammar Gaddafi and create regime change? Why is the UN fostering, through NATO, armed rebellion to create civil war, knowing that in a civil war, the humanitarian concerns go out the window? Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said, Gaddafi's days are numbered. We are working to plan for the inevitable, a post-Gaddafi Libya. Russia says Gaddafi has lost the moral right to lead Libya after attacking his own people. The actions of NATO, along with the United States, Canada, Qatar, and members of the Arab League, engaging in this errant behavior, are creating conditions that will ultimately bring about the destruction of the United Nations and all those engaged in this action. Blinded by arrogance and the sense of power of these nations that they can do what they will, they cannot fathom the consequences of their actions. They think they're on a good course in which all of the vultures will benefit. But in the end, all of you will see that you have signed on to that which will ultimately bring about your utter destruction. What has Muammar Gaddafi done to deserve what this united coalition of demons is putting on him? They say that he has lost the moral right because he has killed his own people. But you have never proved that charge. Check the record of America, England, France, Canada, Qatar, Italy, the Arab League, and put it up against the record of Muammar Gaddafi and the Libyan Jamahiriya. England, France, Italy, Germany, and the United States do not have a good humanitarian record. America, with the transatlantic slave trade and 450 years of evil toward the blacks, the decimation of the Indian population and the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That record is clear. England and all of your empire, you have never had humanitarian concerns for the people of Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and other places that you ruled. So are you better now than what you once were? I suggest not. What are the real strategic interests that compel you to this behavior? Libya under Muammar Gaddafi pushed the British and the Americans out of Libya, closed their bases, and nationalized its oil. That angered Western powers, even as Mohammad Mossadegh of Iran angered the West when he nationalized Iranian oil. That action led to a CIA operation that planted the Shah on the throne as the ruler of Iran. Under his rule, the people of Iran lost much of their Islamic identity, giving birth to Imam Ayatollah Khomeini and the Iranian Islamic Revolution. Whatever you, England, France, Italy, Germany, and America whenever you planted leaders, they were always those who put their personal wealth and gain over the best interests of their people. Thus, whenever you installed a dictator, whether it is in the Caribbean, Central America, South America, Asia, Africa, or the Middle East, you always knew that the legitimate interests of the people would cause some of the people to rise against that dictator. So your dictator had to use methods of repression, torture, and destruction of life to preserve your dictator and to preserve your economic and strategic interests in that country. Have you changed? Are you better than your predecessors? I think not. So when a man like Muammar Gaddafi rises in a bloodless coup and replaces the former king, who was a friend of those who were sucking the blood of Libya, and nationalizes oil, we must ask the question, who did his actions help and who did his actions hurt? It hurt those who were for the first time had to pay a fair price for Libyan sweet crude, the sweetest high quality oil in the world, which meant that the people of Libya could, from the sale of their oil, better their quality of life. How did Muammar Gaddafi use the riches of Libya? He loves to put a tent in the desert, so you cannot say he used oil money as some of your other friends just to build huge palaces, nor can you say no matter how much wealth he has that he does not consider the Libyan population. Were you displeased with his use of Libyan oil money to take down dictators that England, France, America, Italy, and Germany put in place? Yes, you were angry with him. So he became number one on the list of the West to be destroyed. You say he did the Lockerbie bombing, the bombing of a discotheque in Berlin. Well, none of us who are sane and civilized can cotton to any kind of action that destroys the lives of Libyan people or innocent people. Does that compare in any way, however, with America, England, France, Germany, Italy, with your record of mass murder against regimes that you didn't like? Let's look at President Sukarno in Indonesia. He was a man who called all African and Asian nations and nations of color together in the Bandung Conference of 1955 to discuss the wickedness of the West against the poorer and weaker nations of the earth. How many hundreds and thousands of lives were lost when Sukarno was overthrown in a CIA-sponsored coup? Estimates range from between 250,000 to 500,000 deaths. Have you changed? Or are you the same as you were, but dressed in different garments? Assassination plots against Fidel Castro, Patrice Lumumba, Papa Doc Duvalier of Haiti. Are you a new and better France, a new and better England, a new and better Germany, a new and better Italy, and a new and better America, that you could sentence another man to death with your history written in the blood of black, brown, red, yellow, and the blood of your own Caucasian people? This is why the Bible calls you the bloodshedder. Have you changed? You have shed the blood of all life without just cause. Are you the protector of the humanitarian rights of the Libyan people with a record? Have you changed? Are you better than you were? Let us see. If Muammar Gaddafi has lost his moral right to lead the Libyan people, let us see what is going on in your countries and ask you the same question. What is your humanitarian record with your own citizens? You great imperial powers. Europe's unemployment right now is at a 12-year high. Unemployment in France is near 10%. Italy and England are near 8%, and Britain has lost close to 1 million youth out of work. Spain has 21% unemployment. That's 5 million jobless. And what about crime? Britain's violent crime record is worse than any other country in the European Union. The UN itself found that the crime rate in England is worse than in America, and both make the crime rate in Libya look almost non-existent. Libya ranks 61 in the world in their incarceration rate. Russia is number 2. The United States of America is number 1. Can you lecture Muammar Gaddafi and call him a madman? No, shut up and listen. I'm not here for applause. Excuse me. It's disturbing. I'm asking a question. Can you lecture Muammar Gaddafi and call him a madman? When if the leader of a country is mad, would not that be reflected in the citizens of that country? In the crime of rape, Sweden, Britain, Belgium, Norway, Israel, Denmark, Spain, France, Russia, Canada, Japan, and Germany all lead Libya. If he has lost the moral right to lead his people, what about you? What about homelessness? The rate in Britain is nearing 8%. In France, they estimate that 200,000 people live on the streets. In America, there are nearly 1 million living under bridges, homeless. We save America for last because America started all this. You are the one that called for such action, and you maneuvered this resolution 1973 through the Security Council and fought for it and were the proudest when it passed. You are the one that called for Gaddafi to step down and leave his country, and you are the first to say that he has lost the moral right to lead Libya, and you are the first to call for his assassination. Well, America, you are hemorrhaging jobs. Nearly 8 million jobs were lost in this latest recession. America now has 15 million unemployed, and when you add to that the underemployed, it comes to nearly 20 million Americans. 44 million Americans now live below the poverty level, and that is rising. A full 1/3 of American families tasted poverty for at least a couple of months last year. That's 100 million Americans. And the number of households collecting emergency food aid is now nearing 6 million. Approximately 1 in 8 American people are using food stamps. 3 million U.S. properties went into foreclosure in 2010 alone, a record high. And the number of families in homeless shelters or forced to live with extended family or friends is nearing 1 million. 50 million Americans have no health insurance, and that's 17% of the total U.S. population. 68 adults in America die each day in the U.S. due to the lack of health insurance. And what about your veterans, America? Those whom you send to fight your unjust wars. How do they fare when they return home? The Pentagon says that 1 in 5 American soldiers are returning from the war zones with some form of traumatic brain injury. Still others suffer emotional trauma. About 130,000 veterans become homeless each year in the United States, and more than half are black and Hispanic. The Veterans Administration estimates that 107,000 veterans are homeless on any given night. Suicide rates, divorce, and drug dependency are alarmingly high and worsening among America's veterans. Your infrastructure is even worse off than your citizens. A full 1/4 of the nation's bridges are structurally dangerous. 7 billion gallons of clean water leak out of your crumbling pipes every day, while billions of gallons of raw sewage pours into your lakes and rivers. according to your engineers, it will take $2.2 trillion to fix this problem. Your record, America, stinks in the nostrils of God. You who in the name of humanitarian efforts want to save the population of Libya, save them from whom and from what? How many Libyans are living in poverty? What's the crime rate in Libyan society in comparison to you who condemn Muammar Gaddafi? How many homes has he built for his people? How many of his people are living under bridges? No Libyan lives in poverty, not one. The crime rate in Libyan society is nothing in comparison to those of you who condemn him and his rule of Libya. He has built hundreds of thousands and into the millions of homes for his people. No Libyan is homeless. No Libyan is living under a bridge. Why are you angry with him? What has he done to bring down on him the wrath of the West? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to me, the three most hated of men are: one, a rich man who gives away his wealth to the poor, a wise man who shares his knowledge with the ignorant, and the man to whom the Holy Quran is revealed. Why do you hate Gaddafi? Does he share the wealth of Libya with the poor? Well, if he does, and he does, doesn't that make you, America, look bad? You are the richest nation on the earth, and you've got 44 million people living in poverty, bread lines, food stamps, children suffering in America, but you want to talk to Gaddafi about humanitarian concerns? Gaddafi believes that economic democracy can only be achieved when the GDP of a country benefits all its citizens and when the country's wealth is dispersed to every single citizen. One journalist who lived in Libya wrote of the accomplishments Libya has made under the leadership of Muammar Gaddafi. This journalist is Brother Gerald A. Pereira from Guyana. Listen to what he says and see if you can defeat the truth of what he has said. Number one, Gaddafi nationalized Libya's vast oil resources and used his influence within OPEC to negotiate fairer prices for oil-producing countries. Two, Gaddafi used the oil revenue to build schools, hospitals, universities, and infrastructure. Three, he raised the literacy rate from 20% when he became the leader, and now it is 83%. Libya has one of the finest healthcare systems in the third world. All people have access to doctors, hospitals, clinics, and medicines free of charge. If a Libyan needs surgery that is unavailable in Libya, funding is provided for that surgery to be carried out overseas. He raised the life expectancy from 44 years now to 75. Basic food items were subsidized and electricity was made available throughout the country. He spent billions on the man-made river, where he brought, his engineers brought water up out of the desert. And now pipelines run from Benghazi and Tobruk almost to the door of Tunisia. This man has set up irrigation projects which were established in order to support a drive toward agricultural development and food self-sufficiency. Any Libyan who wanted to become a farmer was and still is given free use of land, a house, farm equipment, livestock, and seed. Gaddafi vowed that his own parents, who lived in a tent in the desert, would not be housed until every Libyan was housed. He fulfilled that promise. Under Gaddafi, Libya has now attained the highest standard of living in Africa. Listen to this. Money from Libya's oil revenue is deposited into the bank account of every Libyan. Women have full access to education, employment, and he has enabled women to serve in the armed forces. This is most important. Gaddafi was the first and only leader in the Arab world to formally apologize for the Arab role in the trade in captured Africans. Gaddafi acknowledged that the black Africans were the true owners of Libya and proclaimed in his green book, the black race shall prevail throughout the world. Pereira writes, imperialists fear a united Africa which would completely alter the balance of power globally. The well-documented fact is that if Africa stopped the flow of all resources and raw materials to the Western nations for just 1 week, the United States and Europe would grind to a halt. Nelson Mandela, the one whom you claim you love, called Muammar Gaddafi one of the 20th century's greatest freedom fighters and insisted the eventual collapse of the apartheid system owed much to Gaddafi and Libyan support. With no justification, real justification, you put Libya under sanctions for 10 years. He couldn't buy this or that from this country or that. So he was forced to turn inward. And under sanctions, he has produced a country in which everything in it is paid for. It has no debt. Then the ultimate crime of Muammar Gaddafi was to tie the Libyan dinar to gold. Even more than Russia, China is the only one that has more gold than Libya, according to what we have read. The gold that Libya amassed shows that her country has been based on solid economic principles. But America, Europe, look at you. America is now drowning in $62 trillion of debt if you include Social Security, Medicare, and other entitlements. Well, now, media, what is your responsibility? If I know this, if others know this, if men like Wesley Clark, Attorney General, and Sister Dorothy McKinney, and others speak out, if the Congress voted against giving this government more money to continue this wicked plot against Libya and the Libyan people, whether they're in Benghazi or in Tripoli, I am telling my brothers in Benghazi that the Western world does not intend to give you justice. They will use you, and in the end, they will suck your blood. They have gathered like vultures, and they'll pick your blood as soon as they finish picking his. Well, media, if you know this, why don't the American people know this? It's because our media is controlled. Management of the news to support policies that are wicked. This was done in the lead up to the war in Iraq. If truth were given to the American people would never have supported these policies. You are no longer a free press, and you are doing a great disservice to the American people. And I am warning you, you will pay a price for this, because the American people can only be lied to for so long. But it is written in both the Bible and the Quran. In the Bible it says everything that is done in the dark will come to the light. And in the Quran it says, though it be the weight of an atom hidden in a rock and buried in the earth, yet will Allah bring it forth. So your days of lying are over. Your days of deceiving people all over the world are over. Truth will come out in the end, and it will cause a revolt in the American people against all these institutions which have misused and abused their loyalty and their love for the United States of America. Now, you don't like that Brother Gaddafi is more interested in the welfare of others and does not hoard the wealth of Libya for Libyans alone. He began to show his people why they should be concerned for their neighbors and the suffering of their fellow neighbors, whether it is in the Arab world or in Africa or in other parts of the world. He made his people through the Green Book international in their thinking. In 1999, Muammar Gaddafi decided to foster the ideas of Assadjufo, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt for a United States of Africa. This created great concern. Among who? America, England, France, Italy, Germany, Canada, all of you that have sucked the blood and continue to suck the blood of the poor and weak of this earth. What was your concern about that? If there were a United States of Africa with one central bank, with a transportation system that tied all these nations together with one language that they would adopt and as the official language of all 53 countries, with trade between the states and with those outside of America, with one great army, and they're getting a decent price on the world market for their tremendous resources, then there would never be a poor African, an uneducated African, an African living in the bush, when that African would now be able to live in a decent home, having a decent quality of life. This is what Muammar Gaddafi was doing. And the moment he started fostering the African Union as a step towards a United States of Africa, Europe and America came up with NEPAD, the new partnership for Africa's development. That was not working because the countries that you singled out for NEPAD were the strongest in Africa, and you made them promises that you really never intended to deliver. I want to quote to you from the Holy Quran in the chapter 14, verse 22. It says, "And the devil will say, when the matter is decided," you figure out who that is. "Surely Allah promised you a promise of truth. And I promised you, then failed you. And I had no authority over you except that I called you and you obeyed me. So blame me not, but blame yourselves. I cannot come to your help, nor can you come to my help. I deny your associating me with Allah before. Surely for the unjust is a painful chastisement." But America and Europe came up with another scheme that Muammar Gaddafi rejected. You wanted to separate the nations of North Africa and unite them with the nations of Southern Europe into a new kind of configuration of nations. All of this to undermine and thwart his efforts to unite Africa, that Africa may come up into the world as an equal partner in world politics, world education, world economics, and world religion. Muammar Gaddafi came up with a system that suits the Libyan and African people, not your parliamentary system, not your system of so-called democracy. You, with your arrogance, think that the people in the Middle East want your democracy when the American people don't have it themselves? And what they have, they are now losing it with the Patriot Act and the country being under national emergency since 9/11. You, America, throwing stones and hiding your hand as though you are innocent of criminal activity, and the nerve of you to put people before the International Criminal Court. How many nations, America, have you seduced to sign a document that they will never bring an American before the ICC? Is there some racism involved in who you put before the International Criminal Court with a record like yours, with a record like Israel's, with a record like those? Why don't any of you and the Israelis, for what they did in Gaza, what they did in Lebanon, why don't you bring them before the court? Because America has a veto. It'll never happen. I think there's some racism involved in this, since all the cases that you've prosecuted are Africans. Why aren't any one of you before the International Criminal Court? Is this why Muammar Gaddafi, when he came to the United Nations, called the Security Council the Terror Council? Since this Security Council and this United Nation was established in 1945, you said you wanted to bring peace in the world. But there have been 65 different wars since then, and now many more are arising as we speak. Is this your work? Then why should we have a United Nations when you have failed to bring about what you said you would bring about in your charter? so has the United Nations lost its legitimate right to exist. In the park across the street from the United Nations, there's a wall with the inscription from Isaiah the prophet that reads, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." So your hypocrisy is engraved in granite. So when you look at it and look at the actions of the United Nations, you tell me, is that a worthy institution to continue? The preamble of the Charter of the United States Nations claims that it was being formed to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. But Brother Gaddafi said, quote, "Terrorism is not only the terrorism of Al-Qaeda. The status quo is terrorism. As for now, the Security Council is a feudal security, a feudal policy for permanent members. It protects them and it uses it against us. Hence, it should not be called the Security Council, rather the Terror Council. Since the Security Council was established in 1945 and until now, it has not provided security for us, rather provided punishments and terror." Has the United Nations lost its legitimate right to exist? Shouldn't this institution be done away with or completely reformed? But who's got the courage? Who's got the strength? You are weak and cowardly, and you deserve what you get. America is ruled by special interests, not by the needs, rights, and interests of the American people. And you dare to say that the Arab world that is rising wants your democracy? No. They want liberty, they want justice, they want equity, they want a government that serves the needs, rights, and interests of the people. That's what they want, and this is why Muammar Gaddafi said, this is not Egypt, this is not Tunisia, this is not Bahrain, this is not that, because he has looked out for the needs, rights, and interests of the Libyan people. That does not mean to say that there's no dissatisfaction in Libya, and whether that dissatisfaction is legitimate or not. But if there is dissatisfaction, then let the Libyan people come together and sort out their problems as intelligent, civilized people should do. But it is your intervention. The American people want the same. They're angry with their government. So let me ask this question. Since you said Gaddafi is an illegitimate leader, what is the polling of the American leadership toward their leadership? What is the polling of the American people toward Congress, toward the Supreme Court, toward the executive branch and its leader, the President of the United States? 50% of Americans disapprove of Obama's job performance. Does this mean now that he is illegitimate? Is this why many Americans are saying that he will be a one-term president? 39% of the American people disapprove the way the Supreme Court is handling its job. 70% of the American people disapprove of Congress, and 61% of the American people believe the country is on the wrong track. But according to what we understand, only 2% of the Libyan people are in rebellion against their government. Now, you mean to tell me that half of your people don't want you? And you dare to say that this man is illegitimate? What makes him illegitimate and what makes you legitimate? Is it because you have ruled the world under white supremacy? Is it because you are former power as a colonial master and a slave master? Is it because of your military might? Well, let me tell you what's about to happen to all of you. I didn't come here just to have a press conference. I came here to preach the doom of this institution. You say he's illegitimate? He kills his own people? What's your record? What's your record, America? Why are American soldiers dying in Iraq and Afghanistan? Because the former president lied and said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that he was an enemy, that he was going to be a threat to the security of America, that he may be connected to Al-Qaeda. So you sent these soldiers to die on the basis of a lie and then washed your hands of responsibility for killing them. How many so-called Libyans can you prove that Gaddafi killed? And how many Americans do we have on the record that your lives has caused their death and the wounding of hundreds of thousands that may never again regain their correct mental state? But you're not the first to do that. American presidents have been lying all along, killing your own people for acquisition of other people's territories, wealth, and oil. Tell me that I don't have the record of America's wickedness. See? Zbigniew Brzezinski estimates that in the 20th century, no less than 167 million lives were deliberately extinguished in politically motivated carnage. And you have humanitarian concerns in the front of your mind? Now let me talk to Russia and China. If you didn't like Resolution 1973, why did you abstain from voting? None of this would have happened if you had used your veto. So at first you were condemning this. Now you have joined the voices of the West, asking Gaddafi to step down and claiming that he no longer has the moral right to lead the Libyan people. And you said that if he steps down, you will be his protector? That's a joke. Has the West promised you, Russia and China, some of what they intend to steal from Libya? And I say to my brothers and sisters in Benghazi, if you think they're not planning to use you to steal what's under your foot, not for your benefit, but for the benefit of the Europeans that you will have to praise if you come to power. Their game is always the same. They have never changed, and they have not changed now. The snake may have shed the old skin, but the snake is wearing the same new skin, just looks fresh, new. Well, China and America, I'm sorry. If you thought it was wrong, you had the right to bring it back before the Security Council. And you still have the power to do that because you are strong members of the Security Council and you both have the right of veto. The poor African Union, they're today debating. Will you listen to the African Union, who has a legitimate right to ask you to stop the bombing of Libya? Will you listen? I doubt it. But now China and Russia, you've joined the rest of them. So now you must share in their fate. You may think it's your move, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the God that is on scene today is so wise, he turns men's mind to thinking and doing as he pleases, because he, and he alone, is Malik Yawmiddin. He's master of this day of requital in which we are now living. So the moves that you now make that make you think you are safe and secure, keep looking at the chessboard. And soon you will see your pieces coming off the table. Your governments will soon be laying in, and some of you who have plotted against the peoples of the world will be seen on the back of pickup trucks driving through the streets of America, and the American people throwing stones and raw garbage at you. This is what you're facing. And it is written in the Quran that the mother town should be warned. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the mother town is Mecca itself. Well, what is wrong in Mecca that it needs to be warned? And who will do the warning? So all of you are facing the wrath of God that you talk about, but you don't know him. But you will soon be very well acquainted with him, because he wants to make himself known by what he does in America. No foreign power will deal with this country. America will be dealt with by God himself and his use of the forces of nature. Now, NATO, I know you can check your watch, because I'm not going to stop till I'm finished. I really don't care what you write. I don't care what you say. I'm making a statement. You can take it or leave it. NATO and America are trying to recolonize Africa through AFRICOM. My question to African leaders is, will you allow it? Out of fear of the so-called power of the West, will you bow down and carry out their will, which is against your best interest and the interest of African people worldwide? If African leaders don't stand up today, then you will find yourself facing the wrath of the fast awakening African people. Look at the arrogance of Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, speaking in Addis Ababa, the capital of the African Union. That's some gall to go right to us and tell us like children what she wants us to do. See, this is your arrogance and your hypocrisy that will end your world. Let me tell you what she said. It is true, over many years, Gaddafi played a major role in providing financial support for many African nations and institutions, including the African Union. But it has become clearer by the day that he has lost his legitimacy to rule, and we are long past time when he can or should remain in power. What you're saying, Mrs. Clinton, is for yourself. Your legitimacy is gone. And maybe you and those like you have lost your legitimacy, and you soon will not be in power. Listen to what she said. I urge all African states to call for a genuine ceasefire and to call for Gaddafi to step aside. I also urge you to suspend the operations of Gaddafi's embassies in your countries, to expel pro-Gaddafi diplomats, and to increase contact and support for the Transitional National Council. America that has done nothing for Africa. You dare send this woman there to talk to Africans like they're your children? Let me tell you something, Africa. If you accept that, you deserve what you get. In closing, in the book of Ezekiel, 3rd chapter, the Son of Man is instructed to warn the wicked and let the wicked know that if they don't turn from their wicked ways, they will surely die. But if the Son of Man fears the wicked and will not warn them, they will die in their wickedness, but their blood will be required at his hand. I'm acting in that capacity as I speak. I warn the wicked, which I'm doing today. And I'm telling you, if you don't turn from your wicked ways, then you still will die. But I have preserved my soul because I've gotten your blood off my hands. I want to announce to you that the period of grace that God has given for America and this Western world to repent is over. And the full chastisement of Almighty God is going to come down on all of you. I'm speaking like this inside America with no arms and no army. But I warned you 15 years ago in the first anniversary of the Million Man March in front of the United Nations before over 40,000 people. And we called all the nations to atonement for murder, violence, and war. But the UN has not atoned. Murder is on the increase. Violence is on the increase. War is on the increase. And the sale of weapons of war and the making of even more horrible weapons of war is on the increase. So you're in it now. You can't escape. The die is set. The judgment of God is here. And that which you depend on for your existence, he's turning it against you. I warned you then, and now this is the final warning. You did not heed it, so this is absolutely your end. Thank you for listening.
Minister Farrakhan will now take questions. If you would please kindly state your name and affiliation.
The minister, he wrote a letter to the leader of the Libyan revolution, and he wants to read that letter to you before we start the questions. Be patient for a minute. Thank you.
I thought I would make it an open letter because I don't want my government to think that I would be writing their nemesis words that I wouldn't share with you. So you'll never be able to say I did something in secret. So this is my letter to Muammar Gaddafi. It reads as follows. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear brother leader Muammar Gaddafi, may this letter find you, your family, and the faithful people of the Libyan Arab Jamahiriya in the best of health and spirit in spite of the prevailing circumstances. Please accept on behalf of myself, my family, the members of the Nation of Islam, and all in America whom you have helped, our deepest sympathy on the loss of life of your son and 3 grandchildren. It is written in the Holy Quran that no soul dies but with the permission of Allah. We may not know Allah's purpose in permitting what is happening in Libya, but again, Allah says in the Holy Quran, whenever a misfortune befalls the believer, He says, Allah is my patron, and to Him is my eventual return. I am deeply, deeply troubled over what I see happening to our beloved Libya and our brother leader, Muammar Gaddafi. We are drinking of the bitter cup of betrayal, which is prophesied to come to us in the last days of this wicked world, to separate from among us those whom Allah God will use in the building of His kingdom, and those who are marked for severe chastisement and utter destruction. I observed those whom you trusted, Prime Minister Berlusconi of Italy, President Sarkozy of France, Prime Minister Cameron of the United Kingdom, and President Obama of the United States of America, who have joined forces with the weak Arabs from the Arab League and others to join the enemies of righteousness and justice to destroy you and the revolution that brought about the rise of Libya into her present strength and greatness. These betrayals hurt deeply, but probably not as much as the betrayals from within your inner circle. To hear that Russia and China, supposed friends, are now asking you to step down, and the president of Russia promising you their protection and a place for you to go, this to me is laughable. Anyone who will ask you to step down, step aside, and leave the country because of what America, NATO, and others are doing does not understand the resolve of a true Muslim. Allah warns us in the Holy Quran, O you who believe, take not my enemy and your enemy for friends. Would you offer them love while they deny the truth that has come to you, driving out the messenger and yourselves because you believe in Allah your Lord? If you have come forth to strive in my way and seek my pleasure, would you love them in secret? And I know what you conceal and what you manifest, and whoever of you does this, he indeed strays from the straight path. Allah and Allah alone is your and my protector. The Holy Quran teaches only Allah is your friend and His messenger and those who believe. We know that Allah and His messenger are our true friends, but we do not know who the believers are until they have been tried and found to be true. My dear brother leader, in the general orders that we were given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whose desire was to make us brave fighters, willing at any time to give our lives for Allah's sake and righteousness, it states in General Order number 5, do not quit your post until properly relieved. Allah put you on your post, and neither NATO, the President of the United States, or the Arab League, or anybody else has the power or authority to tell you to quit your post. Elijah Muhammad told me die on your post. These next few words, again from the Holy Quran, are for the believers. It is written in the Holy Quran, surely I'm going to try you with something of fear, hunger, loss of property, loss of life, and diminution of fruit, but give good news to those who are patient and steadfast under trial. Again, Allah asks the question in the Holy Quran, do men think that they will be left alone on saying, we believe and will not be tried? And indeed, we tried those before them, so Allah will certainly know those who are true, and he will know the liars. In the life of Prophet Noah, he was under such great strain, he asked Allah, when will my help come? And Allah answered, your help is nigh. Your help, brother leader, is nigh. Be patient and be resolved that it is Allah and Allah alone who will deliver you and me as he delivered those before us from the wicked, evil intentions and harm from our enemies. I know that what you are suffering will soon come to me, Louis Farrakhan, and the Nation of Islam. And I pray that the guidance that I give to you, that Allah will make me and us strong enough to be that as Allah has asked the believers to be. In closing, the last two surahs of the Holy Quran are called the chapters of refuge. And my plea to you is to seek refuge in Allah and know that if it pleases Allah, he will deliver you and with you the Libyan Jamahiriya. My dearest of brothers, know that no death can touch Muammar Gaddafi, for it is written in the Holy Quran, quote, and speak not of those who are slain in Allah's way as dead, nay, they are alive, but you perceive not. The great work that you have done will live regardless to what happens. The work you have started by Allah's grace will be furthered by those who love you and those who know the value of what you have contributed to Libya, Africa, and the world. Remember, brother, Allah says he will never waste the work of a worker. I will do all that I can to help, but Allah's help is sufficient. Thank you for reading these words, and I pray that in these words you'll find comfort, solace, guidance, and strength in the words of Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Give my greeting to your beloved wife and family, and to the faithful ones whose faith is being greatly tested. With much love, I greet you again in peace. Wa alaikum salam. I am your brother and servant, Louis Farrakhan. Thank you. Now you may continue, brother.
Thank you very much. Minister Farrakhan, my name is Nellie Hester Bailey. I am from WHCR Radio 90.3 FM in Harlem and Black Agenda Report, an internet radio program. Sir, despite NATO's being in violation of UN Resolution 1973 and the U.S. Congress cutting off funding for the war, NATO appears to be determined to carry out the murder of Muammar Gaddafi. What will that impact, if in fact it occurs? What is that impact on Libya, on the region, and the upcoming presidential election, specifically the re-election of President Obama?
You know, I had something in my talk that I don't know whether I mentioned it. It's about Brother Barack. And this is what I said. I said, dear brother, be careful about the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi and others in the Muslim world. Could it be that while you and your staff are planning the death of Muammar Gaddafi, could it also be that members of your own Democratic Party are plotting to betray you? Could it be that right now, while you are planning for your second term, that there are those in your party want you for a second term, and definitely the Republicans want you to be a one-term president. So like Abraham Lincoln, who was prosecuting the Civil War and doubted that he would be reelected, won a second term, but this so angered the opposition that it was then that his own reelection inspired his assassination. Could that be going on right now under your own nose? Think, dear brother, before you act, because as the Bible puts it, God is not mocked. As a man soweth, the same shall he also reap. And as Obadiah the prophet said, as thou hast done, so shall it be done unto you. If they're successful in killing Brother Gaddafi, this is not going to be the end. This is the beginning of horrors, as you will see. Gaddafi wasn't in some tent twiddling his thumbs. He was working for the good of the African people. The African people will rise. NATO, and I'm sorry, America, I'd gotta say it, you know, because I heard it from the mouth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Europe is finished. All of you that love war, you'll be drowned in your own blood, as it is written. Those of you who love to shed the blood of others, Allah will make you drunk with your own blood as with sweet wine. Europe is headed for war as we speak. Yes, England, France, Italy, Germany. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me that at the right time to tell you that Europe is the graveyard of the future. And all of you that ran to Europe, to your former colonial masters, it is written that everyone will have to go to their own and find refuge under their own vine and fig tree. And as Europe is trying to push out the Africans, push out the Pakistanis, you would be wise to prepare yourself to get out of there or die there, because the future for Europe and America is bleak, very, very bleak. China and Russia, oh, you all will be in war. You like it, so Allah is going to give it to you. You'll have war soon. Mark my words, not my words, the words of a man who was taught by God, and you will face every word that he spoke. And you remember what you heard today, that a man, a real man of God, was in your midst. And every word that I speak, you will face it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Masood Haider. I represent Daily Dawn of Pakistan. Minister, I'd like to know, since you have issued an all-virtual indictment of United Nations, and also you have suggested that there could be a way to stop the NATO attacks into Libya, what is it that you envision? In place of United Nations, what is it that can be created that can replace it?
Are you a Muslim?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you a Muslim?
Yes, sir.
Good.
And
Well,
the other thing I want to know, how do you envision that there could be another resolution that can be brought about and stop this war in Libya?
Well, I'm not familiar with all your twists and turns of the United Nations, but Russia and China have great strength. And they could bring this thing back before the United Nations and argue that NATO and America have exceeded what UN Resolution 1973 authorized them to do, and take another vote and stop this. They could do that. Now, what will replace the United Nations? This is a sham. So I ask you a question, if you believe in Allah, if you're a Muslim, because it's written that Allah himself is going to set up a kingdom on this earth of peace and justice. So all that's happening is to remove all of this fictitious dream of a few that rule the many, that they will continue their rule. Their time is up. I'll say it again, loud and clear. Your time to rule is up, and your rule will end in war, and America's power will be broken in war. These are the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that I stood with to speak. Now mark those words down and watch. I've given you tomorrow's headlines today.
Yes, Brother Minister, my
Yes.
name is Dashan Farad. I represent the Amsterdam News. I would like to know, do you feel that President Obama is being motivated by unseen forces to attack Libya?
There is no doubt. When Brother Gaddafi went into office, look at the sweetness of that man in his heart. Everybody that wanted change in America just about fell in love with this man. And that is what he actually wanted to do. But look who he's surrounded with. He brought around him in economics the crowd from Goldman Sachs. What does that mean? He's not an economist, he's a lawyer by profession. So he trusted economists, and I would say they persuaded him to get a bailout. Did the bailout bail us out, or did it bail out Wall Street? See? So no, he's surrounded by the people that are Zionist controlled or Zionists. In fact, when he was elected, a Jewish man in Chicago said that as Clinton was the first black president, Obama is the first Jewish president. Now you can take it or leave it. He was not elected to serve a black agenda or to do good for us. He was voted in to be the black face on a white agenda. And he's not escaping it. He's caught up in it and will pay the consequences for it. Thank you. Take two more questions.
Thank you for taking the time to record U.S. crimes. My name is Sarah Flounders from the International Action Center, and if you could please comment more on the role of Farrakhan in really the recolonization and plans for new wars in Africa.
I guess just as America planted Israel in the Middle East, and there has not been any peace in the Middle East ever since Israel was established, now she's planting Farrakhan in Africa, not for the purpose of helping Africa. See, the enemy always comes in with so-called good intentions. That's how he deceives you. He speaks the right word, but his actions do not follow the good that's in his words. And Farrakhan is definitely a plant in Africa, using a black face to start this, to make it acceptable. This is why they use Colin Powell to say to the UN that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. They use a black man that had a good track record. So you could trust his word. But he set the CIA behind him because he was not sure that their intelligence was right. And America, instead of following truth and making policy according to truth, she twisted the truth to follow her policy. And so, my dear young lady, I really don't see the United Nations being able to settle anything, because now the whole world sees her for what she really is. And imagine all the little nations looking at her, seeing what she's doing. Now, some are going to cow down in fear because America and Europe's powers are so great, they fear that they can be wiped out like they feel Brother Gaddafi is going to be wiped out. Suppose he survives. I mean, look, it's going 90 days now. He survived. I saw him playing chess. I don't know if that's an old picture. It's a new picture. Well, see, I mentioned the chessboard. Suppose he survives. What then? What about the future of Europe and its dependence on that crude oil? Will he sell it to them? See, he got a good heart. Really. I sat with my brother some years ago, and I said, Brother Gaddafi, do not trust these people. I said, they want to get close to you, to destroy your revolution, and to destroy you. He patted me on my thigh, never said a word. But I said, I'm warning you, brother, this is their intention. When he opened the door, they came in, and they came in to destroy him. And since you're from Pakistan, brother, the West is very afraid of Pakistan's nuclear capability. They love a weak man in power. Nawaz Sharif, who was elected by the people, was a stronger man. And he was overthrown, and Musharraf was brought in. And Musharraf appeared to be too strong too. So you have who you have, and you have what you have. So Pakistan better rise up and remember that this is not your friend. They're not a friend of Islam. And any pretext that will give them the chance to go in and try to take all your nuclear capabilities, this is what they're after. And they only need any pretext. And so be careful, Pakistan. You're a great nation, but remember, Satan is always busy seducing the righteous. I hope I helped in answering your question. Two more, and that's it. Yours and the next one.
That's the last one.
Oh, this is the last one. Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you, Minister Muhammad. My name is Donald Wingfield. I'm with the Black Star News. You already have given Obama not to go into Libya, and they went in anyway. What should the African people be doing today, right now, to stand up in the streets to stop this White House, to cease and desist from going any further attacks into Libya?
Thank you. Since we're coming up on a new election season, and my sister is organizing a huge rally in Harlem. See, we have to stir African people, and they have to know what is going on that is damaging to African interests. And if we rise as a people, particularly in an election season, and let our brother know you can't count on our vote if this is what you're going to do, we put you in power to be a good man, and you have allowed these satanic minds to hook you in. So the book of Revelation said he's like a frog in the mouth of a dragon. You hear the frog beep, 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 but it ain't the frog. It's the dragon talking through the frog. He's not in power. He acts in power, but the powers are behind him. And you ought to know it. Any black man that stands up for white concerns is backed by powers that you don't see, but he feels it. And that's why he acts and reacts the way he does. You better wake up, black people, and not be deceived by the fact that a black man is in the White House. It's great that he's there, if what he does there helps us all. He's done something for gays, he's done something for unions, he's done something for this one, something for that one. Let's see what he does for black people and for Africa, not sending Hillary Clinton to Addis Ababa to tell Africans what to do. The nerve of her. And believe me, if she sent, well, he may have okayed it, but who sent her? Y'all better wake up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Minister Louis Farrakhan, thank you. We had a live feed to Libya and South Africa. They're going to play it in Libya again once they do the translations. Thank you very much.